So coming up tomorrow is going to be Contender Series 2025, week number 8, and this is probably the latest I've ever recorded and uploaded a video in terms of when the event is actually going to start taking place, because the event takes place tomorrow in about 20 hours at the time of me recording this video, and I normally record these on like Saturday, Sunday for me, but I will be honest with you guys, I didn't really plan on covering week number 8 this week. I thought I was going to take a week off. The reason why is because I threw a tansy after week number 7. I think I got a little bit too emotionally invested in the Contender Series. I had another bad prediction week. Once again, making the correct reads, just making the wrong pick. But the thing is, you can't really make incorrect reads if you actually do tape study, because then you just kind of say what you think's going to happen, and then you've got to try and make a pick based on that. But I've just been picking the wrong side, and it just really sucks to kind of spend so much time and then just be so wrong when it does really come down to it. And also, I think it was just kind of also because I'm very busy at the moment. I was actually getting behind on university because I was spending so much time taping Contender Series. So just for full transparency, I didn't actually spend as much time taping the Contender Series this week as I have done in the previous weeks, but I will be honest, my previous method hasn't been working. So maybe doing a little bit less study is going to result in better predictions. But also another thing I should add is, on paper, this should be an easier card to pick just looking at the odds. There are a lot of minus 400, minus 500 favorites on this card. Now, there's always bound to be an underdog upset at some point, so maybe we can try and see where that opportunity could lie. But I think that this should be a pretty good card for me to get back on track. Now, with that absolute yap session of an intro out of the way, let's get into Rashid Vagabov as he takes on Paulo de Silva. I do think Rashid Vagabov is going to win this fight, and I think he's going to win this fight by submission. Now, there is genuinely a path to victory for Paulo de Silva here, and it is definitely going to be on the feet, in my opinion. Now, Paulo de Silva is a Charles Oliveira guy. He is a shooter box guy. Very wild fighter. He throws a lot of volume on the feet, doesn't really have good technique, but he's going to be a very aggressive fighter in the cage. And I have seen him attempt a lot of submissions off of his back, and maybe he could catch Rashid Vagabov in one of those submissions. However, I just don't think he's going to. Rashid Vagabov is a wrestler. He's a Khabib guy. Another thing about Rashid as well is he actually has a very impressive submission arsenal behind his game. A lot of these guys that do just kind of have that stereotypical sort of Dagestan Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov sort of style are guys that do just kind of mostly camp in guard on top and win decisions or win by ground and pound. Vagabov's a guy that just has like insane actual like BJJ grappling. This guy has multiple wins by different types of submissions. I've seen him pull submission in bottom position before as well. So I like the fact that we've seen an arsenal of submission attacks from Vagabov, and I think he can, using that sort of grappling skill set, avoid Paulo de Silva's submissions. Now, of course, to get the fight down to the ground, he's going to have to take down Paulo de Silva, but I am not convinced that Paulo de Silva's takedown defense is going to hold up here against Vagabov. We saw him taken down by Paiva in a fight which I thought he lost. And another thing about that fight as well is he was dropped by Paiva, despite actually dropping Paiva himself as well. I think that Vagabov does go out there and beat de Silva. Aside from this Paiva fight, there is tape out there on Silva. There's not much, but there is some, and it's just against low-level guys. I think that Vagabov does go out there and win by submission. And now we have Kurtis Campbell as he does take on Demba Seck. I said this in the We Want Picks video that I did record a few hours ago. I don't think that Kurtis Campbell should be a minus 400 favorite in this matchup. Now, there is a very good chance that he does just go out there and submit Demba Seck in the first round, because he is a very good grappler. But you do need to consider the fact that I just don't love Kurtis Campbell's striking. I think his striking defense is pretty bad. He does leave his chin way up in the air. He does overextend on a lot of his strikes as well. He's very aggressive on the feet, which is definitely a positive, but I can see him getting caught by a much better striker in the future. I just don't know if it's going to be Demba Seck in particular, because Demba Seck's a fun prospect. I think he's a little bit maybe too much too soon taking on Kurtis Campbell, in my opinion. Like, this guy throws a lot of very athletic strikes. You know, he's got a flying knee KO in 23 seconds, but aside from that, I've seen him throw a lot of spinning kicks to the body, to the head, and just in general, he's a fun striker. but I'm not fully convinced that he's going to have the takedown or grappling defense required to deal with Curtis Campbell, because despite Curtis Campbell having a lot of flaws on the feet, in my opinion, his grappling is really good. Now, his wrestling itself, the takedowns, isn't amazing. A lot of the time it is single legs, but I think as he gets better at that, I think we are going to see Curtis Campbell maybe make a good run for himself, just kind of given the fact that his grappling is so good. So with that being said, I do think Curtis Campbell does win this matchup. I do think he does win by submission, and I do think it is going to be pretty early on. However, if there is a really big upset on this card, I think it could be Demba Seck catching Campbell with something. I just don't think that I can pick that to happen. I think that Curtis Campbell's grappling is a lot better than Seck's grappling, so I'm going to be picking Campbell by submission and relatively early on into the fight. Christopher Alvidrez is going to be fighting against Eliezer Kubanza. I actually quite like this fight for Kubanza. Now, it is a striker versus striker matchup, but if anyone is going to wrestle, I actually think it probably will be Kubanza. Now, Alvidrez is a very fun prospect, and I want to put this out here now. I think in the future, both of these guys will be on the UFC roster one day, no matter who wins or who loses. But I do think that I am going to be picking Kubanza to win by knockout. Alvidrez is a very interesting fighter. Like, he's a karate guy. He throws a lot of volume out there, like a lot of kicks, but he also does have very solid boxing when the fight does get in close. And that is not really something you see all that often when it does come to these guys with these karate sort of base. A lot of the time they're very comfortable kicking at range, but when it gets down to it and up and close, their boxing is not as good. Alvidrez, I think, is actually a bit of an exception for that sort of stereotype I just mentioned, because I think his boxing looks pretty solid. Like, once he closes the distance, he does throw boxing combinations, and once he does get in there, he's not really too scared to scrap it out. Now, a lot of the times, except for the fight of the former UFC fighter Sato, he has been he has been beating up on low-level competition, but he has been looking really good. And knocking out Sato in the first round is a pretty good look, even though Sato is on a big losing streak. The thing about Kubanza, though, is he has the death touch. He has big power. He's showing that he can defend takedowns as well. Not that I think Alvidrez is going to go out there and shoot them. And he's also showing that he can offensively wrestle as well. And I really like that out of his game. And not only that, he's showing actually that he can beat pretty good levels of competition. You know, he's been taking on these guys for Brave. He's been taking on some undefeated guys as well throughout his career. And I think just kind of in general, Eliezer Kubanza is going to present a pretty tough test for Alvidrez, just given the fact that he does have big power and that he can wrestle as well. The fact that we could see Kubanza go out there and wrestle Alvidrez as well does give me some confidence in him as well. Just kind of the fact that he's going to have a little bit more option. And I'm not 100% sure how good Alvidrez cardio is going to be as well. So if this fight does get extended, we maybe could see Kubanza find the finish in the later rounds or even a decision. I'm picking Kubanza. I'm actually picking Kubanza by KO in the first round. But I wouldn't be that surprised if the fight got extended and it did kind of take either the volume of Alvidrez or the wrestling of Kubanza to really kind of scrape out a close decision. But I think that Kubanza and his power is going to win him the fight. We move up to Jourdain taking on Magno Diaz. Jourdain, of course, is the brother of Charles Jourdain, and as you can guess, they do actually fight in a pretty similar way. I would say that Jourdain is much more of a striker than Charles, though. Charles is a guy that we always kind of mention has the striking, but he's also got a lot of grappling. And Louis does have grappling as well. I just think that he's much more striking orientated, especially kind of the fact that he did take some time off from MMA to pursue a professional boxing career, which went all right. You know, he won some, he lost some, and since then he's come back to MMA and he's been looking really good. Jourdain, I would say the best part of his game is the boxing, but he does throw a lot of kicks. He kicks from range very well, especially to the legs and to the body. But once he gets in close, he throws boxing combinations. And I love it when I see fighters in MMA throw combinations. You just don't see combinations thrown often enough, and it does really frustrate me. But Jourdain will throw combos, and he'll throw hooks, he'll throw uppercuts, he'll kind of keep his opponents guessing, and I quite like that out of his game. He's taking on a fighting nerd, Magno Diaz, who is a BJJ guy, very sort of aggressive grappler, is how he typically fights, but in his more recent matchups, we have been seeing Diaz strike significantly more. which is probably a good thing because now it kind of shows us that he actually is a threat on the feet as well as a threat on the ground as well. But the way that Magno Diaz does typically fight is he is kind of spamming takedowns. He's trying to get the takedown. And I do think that Jourdain is going to be good enough at wrestling and good enough at grappling to kind of avoid bad situations that Diaz could put him on in the feet. And another thing about Diaz as well is his striking is very aggressive, but I think it's a little bit sloppy. And I think that Jourdain just is the much more technical striker in this fight. Now, Diaz is the violence, is his nickname. I was actually going to say he's a very violent fighter, very, very aggressive on the ground and on the feet. But once again, I don't know what his cardio is going to look like if the fight gets extended against a bigger opponent in Jourdain, who is going to invest in the body, who is going to be able to throw those combinations, as I mentioned. I think that if Diaz is to win this fight, it's going to be in the first round. But I think that Jourdain is defensively sound enough to not get knocked out in round 1. And I think he's also good enough at wrestling and grappling to not get submitted in round 1. So I'm going to be picking Jourdain to win this matchup by knockout. I'm going to be picking him to win by knockout in any of the rounds, to be honest. But I'm going to probably just go with a round 2 knockout, I would say, for Jourdain. And now we have the main event. In my opinion, this is the hardest fight to pick. I'm actually on the dog here in Vitor Costa plus 100. If I have learned anything about the Contender Series, it is if there are close odds, the dog will always win. Now, I know that's a Yanni method, which is just based not on any tape study at all, just looking at the numbers, which is why Yanni has been getting absolutely pounded by me this year, despite my absolutely terrible picks. I did beat him last week as well, because he had a stinker. But anyways, Yanni lives rent-free in my head, alright? Vitor Costa is my pick in this matchup. I think that this is a very, very interesting matchup to see how good Damian actually is at striking, though, because if you watch any of Damian's fights, every single one of his opponents has trying to take him down. All of them. And he has been getting taken down by these opponents every single time. His takedown defense is actually really bad. However, he does work his way up. We've seen him get a submission before in a Darce choke after getting taken down. We've seen him get taken down and then win with ground and pound from his opponents, sort of putting themselves in a weird position on the ground. But a lot of the time, he's just getting these one-punch knockouts on the feet. And the reason why this is so intriguing to me is because I think Costa could be maybe the first opponent in Damian Pinas' entire career that's not going to be trying to take him down, which scares me, because I think he should try and take him down. But Vitor Costa, I actually think he's a fighting nerds guy, despite it not being listed on his Tapology page. Very aggressive, come forward, boxer, pressure sort of guy. And I think that he's not that good, to be honest. I was actually picking him to beat Gandra, but I do think Costa, he might be good enough just to kind of be able to have that game plan to pressure Damian Pinas, not give Pinas the opportunity to land a big shot and just kind of be the guy moving forward all the time and throw in his boxing combinations. Costa does hit hard. He hits hard enough to earn the respect of Pinas. And the thing about Costa is we haven't really seen him offensively wrestle, but he can clinch a lot, and he is relatively strong in the clinch. And because he is willing to clinch, it does make me believe that he's willing to shoot for takedowns as well, and that would be a very smart game plan in this matchup. Now, I'm not going to say that Costa's going to go out there and do it, because he hasn't done it in his career. This isn't a situation where I'm picking Costa because I've seen him wrestle so much, and then all of a sudden he just doesn't wrestle. You know, like the Petrosky versus Ralston in the UFC. Speaking of Ralston, wearing my Cam Ralston t-shirt. This is a situation where I've never seen Costa wrestle offensively, but I think that he could do it. Oh, this just goes against like so much of like my basis of picking fights. But at the same time, I also think that Damian Pinas is really green in MMA. He's only 23 years old. I've seen him struggle a lot against lower level competition. Costa's not fighting the best guys. I mean, on paper, these guys have good records, but they weren't really that good. I think that Costa just wins. I think he just wins by pressure and boxing. That's literally the breakdown for that fight. I think I just yapped for ages about it. Hopefully these are all good, man. Like, I'm actually not going to be able to watch this fight live because I've got to drive 5 hours each way tomorrow for an appointment for my jaw again. But honestly, it was pretty good taking a little bit of time off. I was able to catch up on 3 weeks of university yesterday. I literally sat here in this chair and I watched, I think, like 12 or 13 hours worth of lectures. That's how far behind I got. and I walked less than 2,000 steps. I've walked 8,400 steps today. That's a little bit better. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one, which will probably either be UFC 320 or the PFL. Probably the PFL, because I've been doing my PFL tape study. Haven't really got too much on UFC. I'll see you guys in the next one.